Exactly a year ago, on 7th May 2025, India launched Operation Sindoor. A calibrated wave of missile and air strikes that smashed 9 terror hubs inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied territory in just under half an hour. It was a precise retaliation for the Pahalgam massacre that killed 26 innocent civilians. Now, it is also important to remember that India bypassed Chinese-supplied Pakistani air defenses, hitting Lashkar Taiba and Jaish Mohammed infrastructure, and returned without losing a single Indian platform. For Pakistani generals who had spent decades hiding behind nuclear threats and proxy war, this was a public humiliation. India had crossed the border, shredded their red line, and demonstrated that Pakistan's terror factories could be taken apart at will without triggering an all-out war. Well, obviously, Islamabad screened civilian casualties on television, but on the ground, its response was a telling story. A panic barrage of drones and missiles that India's layered air defenses and counter-drone grid intercepted and exposed as yet another failed gambit. That very night, India did not just punish terrorism, it showed Pakistan's army that the old playbook of deniable jihad and nuclear blackmail was obsolete against a confident and technologically superior neighbor willing to use force. Now the question is whether New Delhi can take the next step by learning from a war not so far away, where Iran used cheap drones to bleed the world's most advanced militaries. So today in this edition of From the News Desk, we will talk about what are the crucial lessons for India from the US-Iran conflict to sharpen its war-fighting capabilities both in the short and long term. Well, in the US-Israel-Iran conflict, Tehran turned the poor man's cruise missile, the Shahid series kamikaze drone, into a strategic tool. Waves of low-flying pre-programmed drones were launched alongside cruise and ballistic missiles to saturate Israeli and US defenses, forcing them to fire interceptors that cost millions of dollars at targets worth only tens of thousands. Well, analysts call this the new cost curve of the war. Using a $30,000 drone to drag a defender into a duel with $2 million missiles is not just tactically clever, it is economically devastating over the period of time. Even when most drones were shot down, enough leaked through to hit air bases, oil facilities, and radar sites, proving that volume and saturation can neutralize technologically superior enemy. Now, strategists warn that the same threat profile is now visible on India's western front, with Pakistan-backed networks already using small drones to smuggle weapons and test Indian airspace. In fact, experts also argue that India must move from small purchases to mass production of low-cost surveillance drones, loitering munitions, and armed UAVs, building mass arsenal that can hunt terror camps, launch pads, and armor in real time. Now, equally urgent is the other side of this very equation, defending against swans without taking a hit at the pocket. Well, the Iran war showed that relying only on big-ticket systems like S-400 is unsustainable when adversaries can throw thousands of cheap drones at you. Now, India needs layered, affordable counter-drone grid around cities, air bases, refineries, and nuclear plants, mixing interceptor drones, jammers, gun-based systems, and where viable direct energy weapons instead of firing premium missiles at bargain basement UAVs. Now, Operation Sindoor already hinted at the future. India used precision weapons and loitering munitions, while its integrated counter-drone and an effective air defense network blunted Pakistan's retaliatory strikes across region including Jammu, Pathankot, Amritsar and Bhuj. Well, that very architecture needs to be scaled up dramatically with more sensors, more shooters and more indigenous drones so that India can fight long, fast, technologically intense campaigns without running out of money or missiles. Now, Iran war also underlines the value of mobility and shoot and scout tactics. Tehran survived repeated US-Israeli strikes by dispersing and moving launchers quickly, while static Chinese-supplied systems like the HQ-9B were hunted down. Well, for India, that means making its own air defense and missile arsenal harder to target, even as it develops strike packages designed to blind an enemy's radar, communication, and command centers in the opening hours of any crisis. While Pakistan still outsources technology and propaganda, India is quietly building a sovereign drone empire. As I mentioned, Operation Sindoor was the first glimpse of this very shift. The Indian Army employed indigenous loiter munitions like the Nagastra 1. Now at the tactical level, Nagastra 1 and its upgraded version gives Indian infantry units a cheap GPS-guided drone that can loiter over enemy positions and dive on targets with 2-meter accuracy, and hundreds of these systems have already been ordered and delivered to the front line formations. Now at the strategic level sits India's Sheshnaag 150, a long-range soaring one-way attack drone developed by a Bengaluru-based company. With a range of over 1,000 kilometers, endurance of around 5 hours and a 25 to 40 kilogram warhead, Sheshnaag 150 can be launched in coordinated swans to overwhelm enemy air defenses and destroy command centers, air bases, and ammunition depots deep inside hostile territory. Well, this is the exact kind of cheap, precise weapon India needs against Pakistan and its backers. So the next time when Pakistan miscalculates, India will not just repeat Operation Sindoor, it will be able to unleash its own Shahid-style storm, built in India and controlled by Indian algorithms, unlike Pakistan. Now, Pakistan entered the Sindoor crisis believing its nuclear rhetoric and Chinese hardware would deter India. But it ended the year with shattered terror infrastructure, choked launch pads, and a neighbor that had proven it could calibrate punishment without fear and on its own terms. Well, in a future showdown, an India armed with its own Shahid-style swan, mobile missile batteries, and most importantly, defense counter-drone grids will be able to dismantle Pakistan's terror ecosystem and military assets at an unprecedented scale while paying a fraction of today's cost per strike. Pakistan's old comfort zone, like pushing jihadists across the LOC and hiding behind nuclear threats, will look suicidal against a neighbor that has studied the Iran war carefully and built an Operation Sindoor 2.0 for the drone age.